What if the highest rank in U.S. military history is not 5 stars? What if the symbol you have seen in movies, textbooks, and documentaries is not actually the top of the chain? Most people believe a 5-star general is the absolute peak. The final step. The highest authority. But history tells a very different story. Here is where it gets strange. Only 3 men in American history have ever ranked above a 5-star general. One of them wore only 4 stars. One of them was promoted almost 200 years after he died. And one of them commanded millions of soldiers without ever officially wearing a 6-star badge. This is not a myth. It is written into law. The confusion comes from titles that changed, laws that expired, and ranks that were created, erased, and revived across centuries. Even historians disagree on what to call this rank. Some say it never existed. Others say it existed but was never named. And yet, legally, it outranks every general you have ever heard of. This video will untangle that confusion step by step. You will learn why the rank was created, who truly held it, and why no one can ever outrank one specific man in U.S. history. And if you stay until the end, you will finally understand why the so-called 6-star general is both real and officially unnamed. So why is this rank so hard to understand in the first place? The answer is simple. The U.S. military never treated ranks as fixed forever. Titles changed. Laws expired. New wars forced new decisions. And over time, the same word started meaning different things. Most people think rank is about stars on a uniform. 1 star. 4 stars. 5 stars. But in reality, rank is about legal authority. It is about who outranks whom on paper, not what they wear on their shoulders. That is where the confusion begins. In U.S. history, the same title has been used for different ranks in different eras. Some ranks were created for one man only. Others existed briefly and then vanished. Some were revived decades later with new meanings. This created overlap. And overlap creates misunderstanding. Another problem is timing. Some ranks were approved by Congress but never fully executed. Others were granted after death. Some laws protected certain officers from ever being outranked, even by future generals. When you stack all of this together, the system stops looking clean and starts looking messy. That is why you will hear people argue about whether the 6-star rank is real. Some say it was never official. Others say it existed but without insignia. Both sides are partly right. And that is exactly why we need to go back to the very beginning. Because the first attempt to create this rank happened long before 5-star generals ever existed. To understand where all this started, we have to go back to the year 1799. The United States was still young. The government was fragile. And another major war seemed possible. At that moment, Congress believed the country needed one man above all others. One commander with absolute authority. That man was George Washington. So Congress did something unusual. They created a brand new position. A rank higher than any general rank that existed at the time. It was meant to place Washington permanently above every other officer, with no equal. The law was clear. The existing rank of lieutenant general would be abolished. Washington would stand alone at the very top. No one would outrank him. No one would share his authority. But here is the twist. The promotion was never finalized. President John Adams never officially completed the appointment. Before anything could be settled, George Washington died in December of 1799. Just a few years later, the law itself expired. The rank vanished as quietly as it appeared. Because of this, Washington officially died holding a 3-star rank. Not the highest rank ever imagined for him. Just lieutenant general. On paper, the greatest commander in American history never reached the rank created specifically for him. And yet, the idea did not disappear. The title existed. The law existed. And history remembered it. That unfinished decision would come back more than 100 years later, during a war the United States had never seen before. After George Washington's death, the rank quietly faded from public view. The law that created it expired. The title was no longer used. And for more than a century, no one in the U.S. military held anything close to it. On the surface, it looked like the idea had failed. The army continued with its normal structure. Generals came and went. Wars were fought. Promotions happened. But none of them came with absolute authority over every other officer. There was no single commander placed permanently above all others. Still, the concept never truly died. Deep inside military tradition, the idea remained powerful. In moments of extreme danger, a nation often looks for one figure to unify command. One leader whose authority cannot be questioned. And as the United States grew stronger, its wars grew larger. By the early 20th century, the scale of warfare had changed completely. Armies were no longer small. Commanders no longer led thousands. They led millions. And when the United States entered World War I, the old structure was no longer enough. The country needed something it had never used before. A rank that already existed once. A rank designed for a moment when no one else could share the top. When the United States entered World War I, nothing about the conflict felt familiar. This was not a small war. This was not limited combat. It was a global machine of destruction, and America was stepping into it late but fast. At the center of this effort was one man. General John J. Pershing. Pershing was placed in command of the American Expeditionary Forces in Europe. At its peak, he controlled more than 2 million American soldiers. No U.S. general before him had ever commanded a force of that size. The scale alone created a problem. His authority had to be absolute. Undeniable. But there was a catch. Under the existing system, Pershing technically held the same rank as other senior generals back home. Men who did not command armies that large. Men who did not operate on a global battlefield. On paper, they were equals. In reality, they were not. Congress saw the issue immediately. So they reached back into history. They revived a rank that had not been used in over 100 years. The same rank originally intended for George Washington. The title was brought back exactly as before, General of the Armies of the United States. This time, there was no hesitation. The law was clear. Only one man could hold this rank at a time. And that man would outrank every other officer in the United States Army, without exception. For the first time in American history, the rank was not just imagined. It was real. At first, Pershing's promotion did not seem that strange. After all, there were no five-star generals yet. But the true power of his rank became clear years later, during World War II. When the United States entered another global war, the military created a new rank to handle massive Allied command. This was the five-star general. Famous names received it. Powerful commanders. Household figures. To most people, this looked like the highest rank ever created. But legally, it was not. Congress had already protected Pershing's position decades earlier. The law that revived his rank stated that nothing in the future could outrank the general of the armies. Even when five-star generals were created, the law explicitly preserved Pershing's seniority. No matter how many stars others wore, he still stood above them all. Here is where things get even more confusing. Pershing did not wear 5 stars. He wore 4. But they were gold, not silver. This was not decoration. It was symbolism. His rank did not fit inside the normal system. It sat above it. The number of stars no longer mattered. There was never an official 6-star insignia. No badge. No uniform standard. But the authority was real. On paper, Pershing outranked every 5-star general who would ever exist. In practice, he held what we now call a 6-star rank. And yet, even Pershing would one day be outranked by someone else. Someone who had been dead for nearly 2 centuries. By the time the United States reached its 200th birthday, an uncomfortable question had been hanging in the air for decades. If John J. Pershing outranked every 5-star general, then did that mean someone could outrank George Washington? For many people, that idea felt wrong. Washington was not just another commander. He was the foundation. The man who led the army before the country even existed. Allowing anyone, past or future, to outrank him felt like a mistake history never corrected. So in 1976, during the bicentennial of the United States, Congress decided to fix it. They issued a posthumous promotion. George Washington was officially granted the rank of General of the Armies of the United States. But this time, Congress added something that had never been written before. They declared that Washington would have rank and precedence over all other officers of the Army, past or present. No exceptions. No future changes. No higher authority. This single sentence changed everything. It meant that even Pershing, who legally outranked 5-star generals, now stood below Washington. It meant that no matter what ranks were created in the future, no one could ever surpass him. The hierarchy was frozen forever at the very top. Washington did not gain new power. He gained something more permanent. Final seniority. And yet, despite this decision, the story was still not finished. Because one man's rank had been quietly misunderstood for more than a century. And his name would reopen the entire debate. Ulysses S. Grant's case is where the story becomes truly tangled. During the Civil War, Grant proved himself again and again. His leadership helped decide the outcome of the war. Because of this, in 1866, Congress promoted him to the highest rank that existed at the time. The title was General of the Army. At first, this seems simple. 4 stars. Highest rank. End of story. But history did not leave it there. Decades later, during World War II, the United States created a 5-star rank. And confusingly, it used the exact same title, General of the Army. This instantly caused a problem. 2 ranks. Same name. Different authority. So which one was higher? In 1924, the Comptroller General of the United States made a ruling that changed everything. The decision stated that Grant's rank of General of the Army was actually the same office that had first been created in 1799. The same office revived for Pershing in 1919. Different wording, but legally the same position. This meant that Grant's rank was not equal to the 5-star generals of World War II. It was above them. And it meant something even bigger. Grant's rank was now considered equivalent to General of the Armies. But the confusion did not stop there. 2 other men, William Tecumseh Sherman and Philip Sheridan, were promoted to the same rank Grant held in the 1800s. That raised an obvious question. If Grant was effectively a 6-star general, were they as well? For decades, there was no clear answer. That uncertainty lasted until very recently. And in the final chapter of this story, Congress made its position clear. For years, Grant's position existed in a strange gray area. Legally important, but rarely explained. Historians debated it. Military experts argued over titles. And the public was mostly unaware that the question was still unresolved. Then, in 2024, that changed. The United States officially clarified Grant's status. Ulysses S. Grant was formally recognized as holding the rank of General of the Armies of the United States. This placed him in the same category as John J. Pershing. The same legal level. The same authority and rank. With this decision, the long-running confusion finally narrowed. Grant was no longer treated as just a four-star general from the Civil War era. He was acknowledged as one of the highest-ranking officers in American history. But one rule still stood firm. Even with this recognition, Grant did not outrank George Washington. The 1976 law made that impossible. Washington remained above all others, permanently. No revision in the future could change that. So the hierarchy was finally clear. 3 men. One unmatched position at the very top. And a rank that existed not because of stars on a uniform, but because of history, law, and timing. So here is the truth, stripped of confusion. The highest rank in U.S. military history is not 5 stars. It never was. The rank above it exists because Congress created it, protected it, and revived it when the nation faced moments that demanded absolute authority. Only 3 men truly held that level. John J. Pershing held it during his lifetime, commanding millions and legally outranking every 5-star general who came after him. Ulysses S. Grant held an equivalent rank long before the title was fully understood, and history finally caught up to that fact in 2024. And George Washington, though never promoted while alive, was placed above all others forever, ensuring no one could ever outrank the man who founded the nation's army. There was never an official 6-star badge. No standard insignia. No clean visual symbol. Because this rank was never about appearance. It was about precedence. About law. About moments when the normal system was no longer enough. That is why the 6-star general feels unreal to so many people. It lives between history and authority. Between what was worn and what was written. But now, you know the full story. And the next time someone says 5 stars is the highest rank, you will know exactly why that is not true. History is full of details that sound impossible until you look closer. A rank higher than 5 stars. A promotion given after death. A general who wore fewer stars but held more power. None of this feels real at first. And yet, every part of it is written into law. Understanding this story is not about memorizing ranks. It is about seeing how nations respond when normal rules are no longer enough. When one decision, made centuries ago, can still shape authority today. That is what makes this rank so unique. If this video helped you see American military history in a new way, take a moment to support the channel. Like the video if it clarified something you were always confused about. Subscribe if you enjoy clear explanations without noise or exaggeration. And tell me in the comments, before watching this, did you believe 5 stars was the highest rank? Or did you already know about the rank above it? Stay curious. History always has one more layer hiding underneath. Stay curious. History always has one more layer hiding underneath. History always has one more layer hiding underneath.